Hello, and welcome to the McGee Movie Moment. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is part one of a summer anthology series about all the summer movies coming out. I'm going to give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down to tell you what to see and what to probably stay away from. We're going to do four movies today. First one is Godzilla. Second one is X-Men. Third one is Spider-Man. And fourth one is The Neighbors. Like I said, this is just part one. There's more to come. So join us later and join us now. So let's get started. Okay, so the first movie we are going to review is Godzilla, the umpteenth remake of the 1960 monster movie classic about the terrorizing lizard that kills Tokyo. We all remember the debacle, or the guilty pleasure as I like to call it, of 1998 that starred Matthew Broderick and was directed by Roland Emmerich, who had Independence Day fame. This one is a little bit more traditional to the 1960s version. This one is starring not only the big grand lizard himself, but one of my favorite actors, Bryan Cranston. And anybody else who's like me, who's a huge Breaking Bad fan, knows where Bryan Cranston comes from. Walter White. So I wasn't walking into this movie expecting a new monster movie called Walter White versus Godzilla, even though that would be awesome. But I was expecting a little bit more. So now don't get me wrong, this is a really fun movie. The only problems that I have with it is the bravura that Bryan Cranston brings to the Walter White role is severely missing in this role. So I probably expected a little bit too much from him. There's also a plot twist in regards to his character, which to me was a little disappointing. And those of you that are fans of his, once you see the movie, may understand what I'm saying. But otherwise, it's a pretty good flick. The other problem is that it takes too long for us to get to see the monster. But this is a pretty classic case in regards to monster movies. It happened back with King Kong in '76. It happened with the Godzilla remake in '98. Hell, it even happened with E.T. We didn't even see the monsters or the creatures until halfway through the movie. I wanted more creature. So, needless to say, get some popcorn, turn your brain off, and you're going to really enjoy this movie because it is a lot of fun. Do not take it seriously. Just take it for what it is. It's a big green monster destroying shit, and it'll be fun. Compared to the 1960s version, if you are a huge fan of the original, this is a little bit different monster than you're probably going to be used to. So this may be or may not be for diehard Godzilla fans. If you're just a basic monster movie fan, you'll have a lot of fun. Okay, so the next movie we're going to review is X-Men: Days of Future Past. This is, again, another sequel in the X-Men series, which I do enjoy, but I just kind of have a hit-and-miss relationship with the X-Men as a whole. Love the characters. Back when we were introduced to them, Wolverine in the first movie, played by the now famous and iconic Hugh Jackman, along with my one of my favorite actors of all time, Patrick Stewart, who I've started loving from Star Trek The Next Generation, playing Professor X, to the great Shakespearean actor Ian McKellen playing Magneto. I mean, the casting choices back then were magnificent, which really got you intrigued with the characters and made you fall in love with the series. Through the years, the series have kind of stalled a little bit. It got reinvigorated, I have to admit, last time with X-Men First Class, which introduced all our characters as their younger versions, starring James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender as Professor X and Magneto. It was just a lot of fun, and I think that ended up being my favorite movie of the entire franchise. That said, Days of Future Past has kind of the best of both worlds. It has the old cast and the new cast reuniting for a very intriguing and very solid storyline. The action is fantastic. The scenes of interaction between all the characters, young and old, is really good, and the actors do the best that they can with a magnificent script. I was just not blown away by the direction. And again, I think I've said this before to a few people and online. I'm not a huge Bryan Singer fan, who originated the X-Men series and who's done other movies in the past. He's just a little bit too wordy and melodramatic for me in his direction, which I think slows these movies down. I compare it to the Avengers a lot, which is just wall-to-wall fun. The X-Men is just missing a little bit of a fun factor for me. That's my personal opinion, but that's not to say that the movies are not enjoyable. So again, I give it a thumbs up, mediocre thumbs up, but I do enjoy it, and I think you'll like it, especially if you're a big fan of the series. And our next flick that we're going to talk about is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, for those of you that don't follow the movies that often, this is not the Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst series any longer. That ended years ago. This is the reboot that happened a couple years ago starring Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. And it actually is kind of fun. I have to admit, I was very hesitant with the reboot of Spider-Man so quickly after the previous series had been done. But I have to admit, I really enjoy Andrew Garfield in this flick. He comes off as a very sarcastic, pompous little dude, but you know what? He's a teenage superhero, and that kind of is how the role should be played. I did really enjoy Tobey Maguire years ago in the role, but I couldn't stand Kirsten Dunst. And I thought their chemistry was like oil and water together, which really dragged the movies down for me. That's where these movies are a little bit different. I think Garfield and Stone have a much better chemistry, so these movies are a lot of fun. Now, taking that into consideration, Amazing Spider-Man 2 not nearly as good as the first one was. Mainly because there's way too much going on, and to a certain extent, it almost turns into an animated movie. There's a lot of villains happening, which starts with Jamie Foxx as Electro, and he just brings nothing to the character, and it wasn't intriguing at all for the villain, and anybody that's really into superhero movies knows that the villain is almost the best part of the movie. So he doesn't really do much to add to the role, and obviously doesn't do much to add to the movie. There's other villains like the reemergence of the Green Goblin and Rhino at the very end. The biggest part of the movie that I enjoyed was the last 2 to 3 minutes, believe it or not, which sets up the next movie, which really makes me want to see the third movie. But the second movie is pretty forgettable. So if you enjoyed The Amazing Spider-Man 1, you may possibly have a fun time with this, and it is a watchable movie, but it's not at the top of my list by far. And if you're a die-hard Tobey Maguire fan, don't even waste your time, because this is a... Okay, and the last movie we're going to review today is The Neighbors. This is going to be a short and sweet review, because not a whole hell of a lot to talk about. There's some very funny moments in it, no doubt, but the movie runs a bit long. It's just a very juvenile sophomore comedy. A lot of crude and crass humor in it, so if you're offended easily, please do not go see this movie. A lot of penis jokes, a lot of booby jokes, and, you know, all that college-type humor. Seth Rogen is the star of it, along with Zac Efron, who traditionally is of Disney fame, but this is by far not a Disney movie. So he breaks that mold greatly. So it is funny at moments. There's a lot of really dull moments in between the really funny jokes. Not the best comedy I've ever seen, so go at your own risk. I would not recommend it highly, but it's good for a couple laughs. And that's a wrap on the first installment of McGee Movie Moment. So please join us in the next few weeks, as there's many more movies coming down the pike into the cinemas, such as Angelina Jolie and Maleficent. There's the Planet of the Apes sequel that's happening. There's another Transformers movie coming down the pike. And this weekend, we have Seth MacFarlane following up his hilariously funny movie debut of Ted with 1 Million Ways to Die in the West. So those movies could be coming to the McGee Movie Moment near you, so please stay tuned. Hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time.